this is David Duke. Welcome to my staff workspace, part of my library, and today, my studio. And get ready to delve into my new book, The Secret Behind Communism. And I want to share with you the writings of a courageous Israeli named Sever Plocher and the Ynet News, one of the largest news organizations in Israel. I'll begin with a man you should recognize, but might not. Do you recognize this mustache? Do you recognize this man? He killed millions of people in cold blood. Now, if you suppose it's Hitler, you're mistaken. Here's his name, Gingrich Yagoda. Do you recognize his face? Now, don't feel bad if you can't. Not 1 in 10,000 people know him. Who is he, you might ask? He's the man who executed the greatest mass murder in the history of mankind. And he wasn't a National Socialist. He wasn't a German. He was a Soviet communist leader, and he wasn't of Russian descent. Yagoda was a member of a group that held very deep, centuries-old hatreds against the Russian people, the Slavic peoples, indeed, all of the Christian European peoples. Today, I want to praise a courageous Jewish writer and website. We should recognize the fact that there are Jews who oppose elements of ethnic racism and extremism among their own people, as they would criticize intolerance and racism among Gentiles. One of them is the Jewish journalist Sever Plocher, who wrote an article called Stalin's Jews. It has the shocking subtitle, "We mustn't forget that some of the greatest murderers of modern times were Jewish." Plocher refers to Gingrich Yagoda as, quote, the greatest Jewish murderer of the 20th century. He writes that Yagoda, quote, is responsible for the deaths of at least 10 million people. And he goes on to write, and I quote exactly, his Jewish deputies established and managed the Gulag system, unquote. Raoul Hilberg, the most respected Jewish Holocaust historian, alleges that Hitler caused the death of 5 million Jews. Plocher says that Yagoda killed twice the number of people as alleged by Hitler. Plocher points out that Yagoda and his Jewish deputies ruled over the biggest secret police murder and torture organization the world has ever seen, the NKVD. So my question to you is, why have you never heard of Yagoda? And why do you never hear about the communist Holocaust that murdered twice the number of Russian and Ukrainian Christians than the alleged number of Jewish victims? Why don't you see pictures of the victims and the pictures of their murderers? My new book, The Secret Behind Communism, will answer those questions with documents and the statements of leading Jews and Gentiles during that period and in modern times. It quotes leading Jewish authorities boasting of the worldwide Jewish support for the Bolshevik Revolution and for the Red Army against the Tsar and the Russian people, the same way that the Jewish organizations around the world supported the Iraq War against their enemy, Saddam Hussein, and the same way they now seek a horrific war against their current enemy, Iran. My book proves that the biggest financiers of the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia were some of the richest Zionist capitalist bankers in the world, such as Jacob Schiff. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? Rich bankers supporting the supposed worst enemies of capitalism. But when you understand the ethnic, tribalist-driven origin of communism, you begin to understand why. Raphael Lemkin was the Jewish human rights activist who invented the term genocide. He wrote a lot about the Jewish Holocaust and also about the Ukrainian Holocaust, called the Holodomor, a term, like the name Yagoda, you have likely never even heard before.